In the time before memory learned to forget, when the moon still bent low enough to hear the prayers of humans, there existed a village called Ilueo. It was a land painted in red earth and green promise, where palm trees whispered secrets to the wind and drums carried messages farther than voices ever could. At dawn, smoke curled from cooking fires like blessings rising to the sky, and at dusk, the sun melted into the horizon as if it feared to leave. At the center of Ilueo stood a palace unlike any other, built from clay hardened by generations and crowned with gold that caught the light like fire. This was the home of Prince Adikanol, son of the Oba, born into wealth so vast that traders lowered their eyes before speaking his name. From the day he learned to walk, the weight of expectation rested on his shoulders. He was taught how to rule, how to command, how to be admired. But no one taught him how to be free. They said the prince's footsteps sounded like silver striking stone. They said his laughter was rare and therefore priceless. They said one day he would marry a woman chosen not by love but by lineage, cowries, and alliances older than memory itself. And so the prince grew, surrounded by luxury yet quietly starving for something unnamed. Beyond the palace gates, far from polished courtyards and guarded doors, lived a girl called Morankeji. She had no parents to braid her hair or call her home. Sickness had taken them when she was still learning the shape of grief, leaving her to be raised by the mercy of neighbors and the patience of time. She lived near the riverbank in a small hut that leaned slightly, as if tired, and owned little more than 2 faded wrappers, a cracked calabash, and a hat that refused to harden. Each morning before the village stirred, Morankeji walked to the river. She fetched water, washed clothes, and sang softly as she worked. Her song carried sorrow, but it also carried hope, the kind that survives when everything else is taken. The river listened. It shimmered when she sang of joy and grew quiet when her voice trembled. Sometimes, when the world felt unbearably heavy, she believed the river answered her, reminding her that survival itself was a form of strength. One afternoon, when the palace air grew thick with praise and performance, Prince Adikanol did something no one expected. He removed his fine robes, wrapped himself in plain cloth, and slipped past the palace guards. He wanted to hear words that were not rehearsed, to feel the earth beneath his feet without ceremony. He walked until the gold faded from view and the dust road welcomed him like an old friend. That was when he heard the song. It floated on the air, gentle and unafraid, reaching into his chest and tightening something he had never known was loose. He followed the sound until he reached the riverbank, where he saw Morankeji standing barefoot in the water, sunlight clinging to her skin as though it recognized her. When she looked up and their eyes met, the world seemed to pause. The birds stilled. The river softened its flow. In that moment, the prince forgot who he was supposed to be. They spoke only briefly that day, cautious and curious. But the next day, he returned. And the day after that. Their meetings became woven into the rhythm of the river, quiet, steady, inevitable. He spoke of distant lands, of responsibilities heavy as crowns. She spoke of hunger, resilience, and the strange comfort of solitude. He laughed more with her than he ever had in the palace. She found peace in his presence, something she had not known she was missing. Love grew slowly, without announcement. It did not demand attention. It simply existed, deep and certain, like roots finding water beneath dry ground. But the village noticed. Whispers crept like smoke through market stalls and palace halls. A prince, they said, was meeting a river girl. An orphan dared to dream beyond her place. When the queen mother heard, her heart tightened, not with cruelty, but with fear of tradition breaking beneath her feet. The elders were summoned. Drums were beaten, not in celebration, but in warning. They told the prince his duty was greater than desire. That a man of his standing could not marry dust and call it destiny. Prince Adikanol listened with respect, then asked a question that silenced the room. Did a crown give birth to a man, or did a woman? No one answered. Still, tradition demanded proof. Morankeji was summoned before the elders and given trials meant to break the unworthy. She would face hunger without complaint, answer riddles meant to humble pride, and walk the ancestral forest alone at night, where spirits were said to test the truth of one's heart. Many believed she would fail. They did not understand what hardship teaches an orphan. She entered the forest without trembling. She answered wisdom with humility, not cleverness. She endured hunger with quiet dignity. When she emerged on the seventh day, weary but unbroken, the elders felt it in their bones. The ancestors had spoken. The wedding came with thunderous drums and joyful cries that echoed across Ilweo. The river overflowed as if rejoicing for its daughter. Morankeji entered the palace not as a beggar, but as a woman shaped by resilience, crowned by endurance. Prince Adikanal took her hand before the people and smiled, not as a prince who had claimed a bride, but as a man who had found his home. And so remember this: wealth can command obedience, but love commands legacy. Palaces impress the eyes, but kindness feeds the soul. Destiny does not always choose the road of gold. Sometimes, it walks barefoot along the riverbank, singing softly, waiting to be heard. For when a prince chooses the dust road, it is not poverty that enters the palace. It is purpose.